Well, hey there, thanks for tuning in. Today I am opening back up a string synth that I thought I had fixed and then found out that I hadn't fixed. It's an intermittent problem, and I'll show you what it sounds like. So the last time I worked on this, I made a decision to replace all the capacitors on the output board, since that's where my problem seemed to be coming from. However, I had all the values except for one, so I had to place an order, and that order came in, so I have the last remaining one. So yeah, I'll just get to it. Cheers. Yeah, if you haven't done much soldering, it's not that bad. Definitely if you're going to be buying old stuff, it's a good thing to learn. I prefer to use just solder wick instead of desoldering pump or the little bulb thing. I don't know. Just seems like it works the cleanest to me. Yeah, definitely the most important part is taking breaks and only doing it when you feel patient enough to do it properly. The worst thing with the solder wick, of course, is when it just gets stuck to the thing you're trying to desolder. Okay, there it goes. Don't know why that took so long. There you go, just like pulling a tooth that's ready to go. Okay, that's the new one in place. Let's see if this solves our problem. Well, that doesn't sound too good. I don't think that was the full solution at least. I'm getting a little suspicious of this though. Yeah. Yeah, none of these other ones seem to respond. But this one consistently responds when I tap it, so makes me a little suspicious of that. It's just hard to be sure sometimes. Okay, well, so I went ahead and looked up the part that was acting a little suspicious, and I think I might have something. I don't know. I'm gonna try testing it, but I kind of have to draw it big to understand it. That's just my learning style, I guess. But here's how the layout of the chip works. So pin 8 can get up to about 22.5 volts positive DC. Pin 4 can get minus 22.5 volts DC. Audio inputs are pin 7 and 6. The output is pin 1. Pin 2 is broken off. It's just how the design of the chip is. And then pin 5 and 3 is tied with the capacitor outside of the chip, I guess, so you can change the value, maybe. But this chip is basically an amplifier that you give it the right DC. You put your audio input and you take your audio out and it'll amplify it significantly. So yeah, I thought about like what I needed to know. First I needed to know if, just testing it, if it was the typical setup, which I did already, and yes, there was a positive voltage on pin 8, there was a negative voltage on pin 4, there was a capacitor tying the legs 5 and 3, so I think it's safe to assume that it's used in a normal way, according to the schematic that you find on like a Mauser DigiKey. So once I figured that, I devised a couple, well, 3 or 4 tests, maybe 4, I think. Yeah, I guess it's going to be 4, that I could do to see if it's maybe not working correctly. So one, I wanted to know if the output of the chip was distorted in the same way as, like, if I could see it on a multimeter, if I could see the distortion the same way that I see it, or that I hear it whenever it makes the terrible crackling sound. The second test is to see if the inputs, pin 6 and 7, are distorted at the same time. The third test is to see if there's some kind of distortion in the DC supply of pin 8. And then the fourth test would be pin 4 to see if there's distortion in the DC supply. So yeah, let's do these tests and see if this chip is our final, maybe, problem. So first off, we just need to see if the output of this chip is distorted, so we can eliminate anything after it in the circuit. So yeah, it looks like pin 1 does distort along with the noise, so you can see the voltage jump around at the same time you hear the noise. So next we need to see if the same thing's happening on the input, because if it is, then that would, I think, eliminate this chip from being the source. It'd be something earlier in the circuit than this chip. Pin 6 seems pretty stable. Pin 7, on the other hand, jumps a little. It's not a lot, but then again, I don't know, maybe it means something, I'm not sure. It's definitely affected, whereas the other one isn't, so that does make me a little more suspicious. So next we just need to see if the DC that's coming in that would be amplifying the signal is unstable, or if it's higher than it's supposed to be. So pin 1 looks pretty good. It seems real sturdy, consistent, 13.75 volts. Pin 4 also seems pretty sturdy, although it does fluctuate, but that seems like such a small amount of ripple. I don't really even know if that could cause any problems necessarily. So what we know is that the output is distorted from the chip, so the problem in the circuit comes before the output of the chip. Input is distorted slightly. I don't know if that's the problem. It seems so slight. The DC volts supplied are very stable, but not absolutely stable. So I think there's a chance there could be a problem in the chip. Okay, so I have an update. I have one more finding. I switched the multimeter to DC volts and realized that the audio input had 13 volts of DC on it going into that chip. One of the pins, pin 6 was okay, but pin 7 had 13 volts of DC, and judging by the board, the only way that it could be getting that 13.75 volts of DC was through the power to that chip itself. So something inside of the chip is faulty and DC is leaking into the wrong part, and I think that's the problem. So I'm gonna order a new chip and see if that fixes everything. We'll see. There it is, new HA1457. Yeah, so it took like a week to get here. I love Small Bear Electronics, but they're not quite the fastest. But it's worth the wait, I hope. Okay, the moment of truth.
For us to be able to operate and reliably test this circuit. Okay, I have the test probes from pin 3 to pin 8. That's plate to cathode.
Here's the old one.
And with the isolation transformer providing the current,
I'm gonna set it
voltage is only 162 volts DC. Alright, plugged in the amplifier
Pop the new
directly
one
to the
out.
current limiter. Keeps Jack very entertained. And for that, we're appreciative.
The new
After
one.
all he finishes his mirroring.
Alright, so I've changed out the chip.